みなさん、こんにちは。ローズです。Welcome back to NihonGoal。元気ですか？ I hope you are doing well。このビデオでは、レッスン49番の文法を紹介します。でも、その前に、レッスン48番の文法を復習しましょう。First, we've learned about the causative verbs, meaning to make or let someone do something. So, for example, the department manager makes Miss Law go to Osaka on a business trip or on a business. 部長はローさんを大阪へ出張させます。Next is using the causative form followed by いただけませんか when we want to ask someone to let us do something. So, would you please let me 何々 For example, would you please let me park my car here for a while? ここにしばらく車を止めさせていただけませんか？はい、大丈夫ですか？ Before we begin, make sure to check out the vocabulary list for this lesson. And if you find this videos helpful, please don't forget to click the like and subscribe. Also, if you are looking for ways to help this channel even more, please consider becoming my patron through my Patreon page, which you will find in the description box below. And to all my Patreons, thank you so much for your continued support. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into our lesson. Here are the grammar points for today's lesson. For today's lesson, we will learn about Keigo or respectful speech. Keigo is the polite or respectful or formal way of Japanese speech. Using formal or respectful speech is a big part of the Japanese culture because the Japanese gives big importance in social hierarchy, and one of them is to use the formal or respectful speech. There are different types of Keigo or respectful speech. The first one, which we will focus on in this lesson, is the Sonkeigo or the honorific expressions. The second one is the Kenjogo or the humble expressions. And the third one is the Tenego or the polite expressions. So we will discuss the other two in the next lesson. Like I said, Sonkeigo is an honorific expression which is used when we are talking to or referring to someone who is superior to us. So we use this when we are talking to or referring to our boss, elders, teachers, clients, and customers. And we usually hear this expression in a business or formal situations. So we will focus on Sonkeigo using verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. The first level of using Sonkeigo is using the passive or the potential form of the verb as a respectful verb or Sonkeigo. For example, the verb write. So the mass form is kakimasu. So we change it to its passive or potential form, which is we change the syllable before the mass, which is the I syllable, in this case ki. We change it to the a syllable or the ka. And then mas is changed to remas. So kakimasu becomes kakaremasu. So we do this with other verbs as well. So for group 1, we just change the I syllable to its a syllable and then change mas to remas. So here, write, kakimasu, kakaremasu. Hurry, isogimasu, isogaremasu. Read, yomimasu, yomaremasu. Call, yobimasu, yobaremasu. Go home, kairimasu, kairaremasu. Meet, aimasu, awaremasu. So here, we change I to wa. Aimasu, awaremasu. Wait, machimasu, mataremasu. Speak, hanashimasu, 話されます。go, 行きます、行かれます。For group 2 verbs, all we have to do is change ます to られます。For example, sit, かけます、かけられます。Go out, 出ます、出られます。Wake up, 起きます、起きられます。Quit, やめます、やめられます。And for group 3 verbs such as come, 来ます becomes 来られます。do します becomes されます。And for group 3 verbs such as move, 引っ越しします。Again, we just change します to されます。引っ越しします becomes 引っ越しされます。Here are some examples of sentences using verb in its passive form to show respect or to use Sonkeigo. For example, the president already went home. So our verb is 帰りました. So this is the basic or the normal form or the mass form. So we will use the passive form of 帰りました. So first, let's say the president. 社長はもう already 帰られました. So again, change the り to ら and then use the past tense. 帰られました。部長はもう帰られました。The department head will go on a business trip to Singapore. To go on a business trip is 出張します。So we say, 部長は the department head 来週シンガポールへ出張します becomes されます。部長は来週シンガポールへ出張されます。Next, the client already read the document. So the verb is 読みました。read. お客様はもう資料を the document 読まれました。So the passive form of 読みます is 読まれました。お客様はもう資料を読まれました。The professor will come to the study room at 7. Come is 来ます。先生は7時頃に研究室へ or に来られます。先生は7時頃に研究室へ来られます。Where are you going? The verb is 行きます。どちらへ or どこへ行かれますか？どちらへ行かれますか？ So where we are using the polite form of どこ which is どちら。どちらへ行かれますか？ How much summer leave will you take? Our verb is to take 取ります。どのくらい or どのぐらい夏休みを summer leave will you take? 取られますか？どのくらい夏休みを取られますか？ When are you moving to Tokyo? The verb is 引っ越しします。to move. いつ東京に引っ越しされますか？いつ東京に引っ越しされますか？ Did you quit alcohol? Our verb is to quit. やめました。お酒を So here we are also using the polite form of alcohol. So we just add prefix を。お酒をやめられたんですか？お酒をやめられたんですか？ So here instead of saying やめられましたか we can also use the ですか to soften the question. So this is still polite. We are just not trying to ask directly, like, this is also a softener. やめられたんですか? お酒をやめられたんですか? Next Sonkeigo pattern that we will learn is using the verb stem followed by ni narimasu. So we have the subject wa. Next is o, the prefix o before the verb stem followed by ni narimasu. So this is more polite compared to using the passive form. For example, will you be buying the new iPad? The verb is to buy. Kaimasu. So we can say 新しい iPad を o. So we have the prefix o followed by the verb stem of kaimasu. So how do we get the verb stem? All we have to do is remove mas. So we have kai. Kai followed by ni narimasu ka? Because we have a question. 新しい iPad をお買いになりますか? Another example, will you be using the computer? The verb is to use. 使います。パソコンを So before the verb stem, we have o, and then we get the stem of 使います which is 使い followed by になりますか? パソコンをお使いになりますか? Next, did Miss Satoi make the schedule? The verb is to make 作ります。Satoi さんがスケジュールを作りになりますか? Satoi さんがスケジュールをお作りになりますか? Did you write this book? Our verb is write or 書きます。この本をお書きになりましたか? この本をお書きになりましたか? The plan for the meeting is always decided by the department head. Our verb is decide or 決めます。会議の予定はいつも部長がお決めになります。会議の予定はいつも部長がお決めになります。However, there are some exceptions for this pattern. It cannot be used with one mora verb and group 3 verbs. Instead, we use special verbs. So when we say one mora, it is the character, hiragana character, before the mas. So for example, in this case, kimas. So we have one mora, ki. For mimas, si, we have also one mora, mi. Sleep, nemas, we also have one mora. Come, kimas, and do, shimas. However, there is an exception. Technically, grammatically, we can use it with ikimas. However, it is not used by the native speakers. So, ikimas cannot be used with this pattern as well. So, again, kimas, mimas, nemas, kimas, shimas, and ikimas cannot be used with this pattern. Nani-nani o. Verb stem ni narimasu. Also verbs in group 3. But we can use special verbs for this. For example, for the verb exist or imasu, we use irashaimasu or oide ni narimasu. So these are special respectful words. So for the words that cannot be used with the pattern ni narimasu, we can use special words for those. Or we can use special Sonkeigo words for those. For example, the words for exist, go are irashaimasu or oide ni narimasu. And for verb to say, imasu, we use oshaimasu. Where, kimasu, we say omeshi ni narimasu. For verbs drink or eat, we use omeshi agarimasu. And for sleep, nemasu, we use oyasumi ni narimasu. For see or look, which is mimasu, we use goran ni narimasu. For come or kimasu, we also use irashaimasu or oide ni narimasu. So, exist, go, and kimasu are all the same. Okay. For do or shimasu, we use nasaimasu. And for know or shiteimasu, to know something, we say gozonji desu. And lastly is the verb kuremasu or I receive. The respectful word for that is kudasaimasu, which we've also learned in lesson 41. So here are sample sentences using the special respectful verbs. For example, do you have any children? So the verb is imasu. So instead of using imasu, we use special respectful verb. For example, oko-san ga. So instead of imasu, we say irashaimasu ka? Oko-san ga irashaimasu ka? Where are you going for your trip? So instead of saying ikimasu, dochira e or doko e. So instead of doko, we say dochira to be respectful, followed by ryoko ni for your trip. Irashaimasu ka? Dochira e ryoko ni irashaimasu ka? Next example, what time can you come? Our verb is kimasu, to come. Nanji goro ni oide ni naremasu ka? So here, since I want to ask what time can, so oide ni narimasu becomes nare to change it to potential verb. Oide ni naremasu ka? Nanji goro ni oide ni naremasu ka? Will you be eating here? The verb is to eat or tabemasu. Tennai de, or in the store, tennai de, meaning inside the store. Meshi agarimasu ka or omeshi agarimasu ka? Do you drink alcohol? The verb is nomimasu. Osake o meshiagarimasu ka? So again, the respectful verb for eat and drink is the same. What is your husband's name? Goshujin no onamae wa nanto oshaimasu ka? So here we are saying nanto, literally, what do you say or how do you say your husband's name? Goshujin no onamae wa nanto oshaimasu ka? Does the president know the year-end party was moved next week? The verb is to know. Shiteimasu. 社長は忘年会が year-end party 来週になったことをご存知ですか? So instead of しています we say ご存知ですか? 社長は忘年会が来週になったことをご存知ですか? So here literally 来週になった、to be moved next week. Okay, next, would you like to see our products or would you like to look at our products? The verb is 見ます。製品をご覧になりますか? So for 見ます we use ご覧になります。製品をご覧になりますか? And another example, could you sleep well last night? The verb is 寝ました。ゆうべゆっくりお休みになれましたか? So ゆうべ is last night, ゆっくりwell or literally slowly. お休みに the respectful of 寝ます。お休みになれ again, could you sleep well? So were you able to sleep well? So we change narimasu to naremashita. お休みになれましたか? How long did you study Japanese? Our verb is 勉強します. So here we have group 3 verb. どのぐらい日本語を勉強なさいましたか? します becomes なさいます。どのぐらい日本語を勉強なさいましたか? And another example, teacher gave me a book. The verb is くれます because I am the receiver, gave me. So we can say 先生が本をくださいました。先生が本をくださいました。The person wearing a kimono is Miss Sakamoto. Wearing is 着ています。着物をお召しになっている。So, 着ます is お召しになります。Since we want to say wearing, 着ています is お召しになっている方は。So here, since we are modifying a noun, we use the plain form of お召しになっています。お召しになっている。And then for 人、we use the polite word 方. And then we followed it by 坂本さんです。is Miss Sakamoto. Okay? 着物をお召しになっている方は坂本さんです。Okay, so far we've only been using the positive or the affirmative form of the special verbs. We can also use it in a negative way. For example, if we want to say do not have or don't come or don't go, we use the negative of いらっしゃいます, which is いらっしゃら. So, い becomes ら, followed by ない。いらっしゃらない。いらっしゃいます。いらっしゃらない。And then if you want to be polite, いらっしゃらないです。なさいます。なさらない。くださいます。くださらない。おっしゃいます。おっしゃらない。And so on. For example, will Mr. Desian be coming to the year-end party? Our verb is 来ます。デシアンさんは忘年会にいらっしゃいますか? So here we are using the respectful verb of 来ます、いらっしゃいます。And then if the other person say, no, I don't think he'll come, 来ない。So 来ます。The negative is 来ない or 来ません。So we say, いいえ、いらっしゃらないと思います。I don't think he'll come. いいえ、いらっしゃらないと思います。Okay, next is respectful way of asking someone to do something. So the pattern is we have the subject, wa or ga, and then the verb in stem form where we attach the prefix o to show politeness or to honor the person we are talking to, and then followed by kudasai. So kudasai, if you remember, is please. So here again, subject wa o verb stem kudasai. So respectful way of asking someone to do something. For example, please write your name and address here. The verb is to write, kakimasu. So far, we've only learned about verb te. So verb in te form, kudasai. So please, nani nani. So this is the basic. So this is also polite and respectful. So we say, ここに名前と住所を書いてください. So this is the basic way of saying please do something. However, there is a more respectful way of asking someone to do that. And that is instead of te form, we use the stem. Only the stem of the verb. So again, こちらに. So instead of ここに, we use the polite version of ここ, which is こちら. こちらにお名前とご住所を. Also prefix o and go are added to have consistency all throughout the sentence. Followed by o kaki, again, stem of kakimasu. Kaki kudasai. こちらにお名前とご住所をお書きください. So this is more polite than VerbTe ください. So if you want to be even more polite, there is also another way. For example, would you please do this or do nani nani? So there is another way. こちらにお名前とご住所をお書きいただけますか? So instead of ください, we can say いただけます. And if you really want to be more respectful, there's also another way. Would you please do me the favor? So こちらにお名前とご住所をお書きいただけますでしょうか? So this is very, very polite. Okay? So again, we have てください, verb stem ください. Next will be いただけますか and next is いただけますでしょうか? We cannot use this pattern with special verbs that we just learned except for to eat and to look. So for example, please come here, the verb come or いらっしゃいます. We cannot say ここにおいらっしゃいください. So we cannot use it with いらっしゃいます except for お召し上がります. So please help yourself or please eat. どうぞお召し上がりください. So 召し上がります. So remove ます. Add ください. And also for the verb look, ご覧になります. So please take a look. どうぞご覧ください. どうぞご覧ください. The prefix o is attached to words of Japanese origin. For example, nouns such as お国 country, お名前 name, お仕事 work, お水 water, お茶 tea. Here, ocha is actually a Chinese word, but this is an exception. We use prefix o. Another example is okane or money and osake alcohol. For adjectives, we have ogenki, fine, ojouzu, skillful, ohima, free. For adjectives, we have oisogashi, busy, owakai, young. For words of Chinese origin, we use the prefix go. For example, nouns such as gokazoku, family, goiken, opinion, goryoko, trip, gochumon, order, gochui, caution, goannai, guide, goryoshin, both parents. And for adjectives, we have goneshin, earnest, and goshinsetsu, kind. And for adverbs, we have gojiyu ni, freely, or goyukkuri, take your time. So goyukkuri or yukkuri is actually a Japanese word or Japanese origin, but we use go for this word. Keigo can also be in plain form. So when does this happen? So for example, if I'm talking to my close friend and I'm referring to someone who is my superior or someone that I want to show respect to, I can still use the Sonkeigo expressions while talking in plain form. For example, what time will the general manager come? Our verb is come, いらっしゃいます. 部長は何時にいらっしゃるの? 部長は何時にいらっしゃるの? So here we have the plain form of いらっしゃいます, which is いらっしゃる, and then the question marker, no. Miss Hirabayashi gave me chocolates. Our verb is くださいました. 平林さんはチョコレートをくださった. 平林さんはチョコレートをくださった. When using Keigo, we need to remember that we have to be consistent throughout the entire sentence. So if you are using a verb in Keigo form, we also need to make sure that we are using the correct nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. They should also be in Keigo form. So for example, please write your name and address here. So we have a verb and nouns. So this is our NG or not good sentence. ここに名前と住所をお書きください. So we have the respectful equivalent of てください, which is お書きください. This is very respectful. However, for our nouns, we are not using the keiko equivalent of it. So instead of koko, we use the polite equivalent of that, which is kochira. And for namae and jusho, we add o for namae and go for jusho. こちらにお名前とご住所をお書きください. So here we have, we were able to maintain the consistency of Keigo all throughout our sentence. And lastly is verbs in te form. So if we want to be more polite, we can change the verb te form into verb, get the stem, and then add mashite. For example, I ran a fever last night and it still hasn't gone down this morning. The verb is to run a fever or dashimasu. Normally, we can say ゆうべ熱を出して今朝もまだ下がらないんです. So this is normal using verb in te form. But if we want to be more polite, ゆうべ熱を出しまして. So stem of dashimasu is dashi. Then followed by mashite, and then our sentence 2. 今朝もまだ下がらないんです。ゆうべ熱を出しまして、今朝もまだ下がらないんです。Another example, I was surprised because I heard the news. Our verb is 聞きます to hear. Normally, we can say ニュースを聞いてびっくりしました。So, because of the news, because I heard the news, I was surprised. So here we have a reason and then the result. But if we want to be more respectful, we can say ニュースを聞きまして. So verb stem 聞きます。聞きましてびっくりしました。ニュースを聞きましてびっくりしました。And one more example, I did all my best, and so here the speaker has been cut off, but he or she wants to follow it with another sentence. So we can say 一生懸命頑張りまして ... Okay, so here we could feel that the speaker has a continuation for the sentence but wasn't able to say so. So here we can say, or we can use 何々まして. However, we cannot use it with 何々ください or to tell someone to do something. So we know that てください is a way of saying please do something. However, we cannot use it with ください. So for example, please eat, we cannot say 食べましてください. So this is not acceptable. Instead, we can say 食べてください or お召し上がりください. はい。今日のレッスンはどうですか？もし質問かコメントがあったら、下にぜひ書いてくださいね。And also, don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the future lessons. I will see you in the next one. またねー!